So taking a look at the last 4 problems of our review, 41 is a perimeter problem, and I've written the essentials down here. You should have the word problem in front of you, but you're told that the perimeter of the rectangle is 104 yards, and the length is 4 yards more than 3 times the width. So we do need to know our perimeter formula. And then we also, in order to figure out some stuff here, we need to find some expressions for length and width. So if you read the second part here, the length is, so 4 yards more than. So 4 yards more than means that I'm adding 4 to something. And then you read on to figure out what that something part is. So we would then read 3 times the width. So if you think about it, we know something at least about the length. It's 4 yards more than 3 times the width, but it never tells us anything about the width. So right off the bat, we should let x equal our width. And now that we know width is equal to x, 3 times the width can be written as 3x. So the length would be 3x plus 4. So we can come over here and write that as well. So 3x plus 4 is going to equal our length. So let me give you that perimeter formula. Perimeter of a rectangle, P equals 2L plus 2W, and now we're going to start plugging things in. So P we know is 104 yards. So we're going to replace that P with a 104. So we 104 equals 2 from our formula times our length, which if we look back over here, we have expressions for width and length. So the length is 3x plus 4. So we'll plug that in, and then we'll continue on with the rest of our perimeter formula. Plus 2 times our width. So again, look back at our box over here. Our width is x. So we'll plug that in for width. And now we're left with an equation that's all in terms of x, and we can actually solve it. So first thing we would have to do is distribute our 2 here. So we're going to be left with 104 equals 2 times 3x is 6x, 2 times 4 is plus 8, plus 2 times our x would just give us 2x. Now that we've distributed, we actually have some like terms to combine. We have a 6x plus 2x, so it's going to be 104 equals 8x plus 8. So our x's are all together here on the right side. So we need to get rid of our 8. So we can do minus 8, minus 8. And that's going to leave us with 96 equals 8x. So we're almost there, but we need to get the x by itself. So to do that, we will have to divide both sides by 8. So here, 96 divided by 8 is 12, and it equals x. So if you look back at your problem, you're told to find the length and the width. That is the last sentence of your word problem on the test review. So x is our width. So we've figured out that our width is equal to 12 yards. But we still need to figure out the length. So if you look back at the expression that we wrote for length, our length equals 3x plus 4. But now that I know what x is, over here it's 12, we could just plug it in for our x. So it's actually going to be 3 times 12 plus 4. 3 times 3, or excuse me, 3 times 12 is going to give us 36. Bring down our plus 4, and we will get 40 yards for our length. So we have a length of 40 yards, a width of 12 yards, and you have your final answer. 42 is pretty much exactly the same thing as 41, just another one for you guys to practice. So I'd prefer if you tried this one before you watch the video, if you just watched the video for 41. So just pause it, try to do it, and check your answer. If you still have trouble with it, turn it back on and watch how I solve it. But you're told the perimeter is 124 feet, the length is 2 feet more than twice the width, and once again you're trying to find the length and the width. So we know that we have to write some expressions for width and the length because we don't know what they are. So if we look at our problem here, the length is 2 feet more than. So 2 feet more than is indicating I'm adding 2 to something, and it's 2 feet more than twice the width. So again, we don't know anything about the width. So off to the side, we can let our width equal our x. And then we can write an expression for our length. So twice the width would be 2 times x. So that means that the length is 2 feet more than twice the width. So that would be 2x plus 2. So I'll plug that in for our length expression over here. So we're going to need these two expressions to plug into our perimeter formula, which is P equals 2L plus 2W. Our P is 124, so that's going to go right here. And then we'll fill in the rest of our formula. We have equals 2 from the formula, but we're going to take the L out and plug in the expression for length over here, which is 2x plus 2. Plus 2 from the formula. And instead of width, we will come over here and look what width is equal to, and we see that it is x. So we'll plug an x in. Now this entire equation is in terms of x, and we can start trying to solve it. So 2 can distribute here, and we'll be left with 124 equals 2 times 2x is 4x. 2 times 2 is plus 4, plus 2 times x will just give us a 2x. Like terms, 4x plus 2x. It's going to give me 124 equals 6x plus 4. Now we need to isolate those x's so we can get rid of the 4 by subtracting it. We're left with 120 equals 6x. To undo 6 times x, we will need to divide by 6. And when you do that, you're going to get x equals 120 divided by 6 is 20. So we have found our width. So come over here, width equals 20 feet. But we still need to find the length, but we'll do that using the x that we found down here. So length is going to equal 2x plus 2. So replace the x with the 20 plus 2. 2 times 20 is 40. Add 2 and you'll get 42, and the length is in feet as well. So we have our length, we have our width, and you've answered the question. Last two problems of our test review, 43 and 44, you're actually asked to solve linear inequalities. So remember that linear inequalities pretty much work the same way as an equation, except that we aren't going to have just one set answer like x equals 2. We're going to have something like x is less than 2, which is a ton of numbers. It's an infinite number of numbers. So we have to write our final answer in interval notation, which you have a little reminder in the instructions to write the answer in interval notation. So let's just first work towards solving this one. So if we look at number 43, we have 7x plus 15 is greater than 13x plus 51. So we want to get the x's to the left side typically with inequalities. So I'm going to move this 13x. It's a positive 13x, so I'll subtract it. If I subtract from one side, I subtract from the other. And we're left with 7x minus 13x, which is a negative 6x plus 15 is greater than 51. So our x's are almost by themselves, but we need to get rid of the 15. So we will subtract it since it's a positive 15, and we'll subtract it from the other side as well. That's going to leave us with negative 6x is greater than 36. And then our last step is to divide by negative 6. And if I divide one side, I do the other side. That leaves me with x and negative 6. But what you notice right here, at least I hope you notice, we divided by a negative number. So when that happens, we have to flip our inequality symbol. So it's no longer x is greater than negative 6, it's x is less than negative 6. So from there, to help us write our interval notation, we draw our number line. Our important number to put on the number line would be our boundary number here, negative 6. And you have to think about, where are my x's less than negative 6? So that would actually be on the left-hand side here. And then you have to also think about, well, what type of symbol, a parentheses or a bracket on negative 6. So looking back at your inequality symbol, it's just a less than. It doesn't have the or equal to bar. So that means it doesn't actually equal negative 6. It just goes all the way up to it, but doesn't include it. So it'll have a parentheses. And then way out here to the left, we have a negative infinity. On the right, we have infinity. So to write our interval notation, we're coming from negative infinity, which infinity always has parentheses, and we stop at 6, which has a parentheses because it's not included. And this interval notation here would be your final answer. So 43 is just a regular linear inequality. It does have a little tricky point here because we had to flip our inequality symbol. But if you look at 44, it's a little bit different because it's a compound inequality. So notice that we have 3 parts here. Whereas on 43, we really only had 2 parts. So what we did to one side, we did to the other. So with the compound inequalities, what you want to think about is, what I do to the middle, I have to do to the ends. So that's what we're going to do on this one. All right, so we want to isolate that 9x, meaning we need to get rid of this minus 2. So to do that, I'm going to add it, but if I add it to the middle, I need to add it to the ends. So negative 11 plus 2 would be a negative 9, which is less than 9x, which is less than or equal to 16 plus 2, 18. We're almost done. We want to get the x by itself, so we need to get rid of this 9. So I will divide by 9. If I do it to the middle, I do it to the ends. Leaves me with negative 1 is less than x, which is less than or equal to 2. Again, to help us with our interval notation, we'll draw that number line. And now that I have a compound inequality, I actually have 2 important numbers to put on my number line. So negative 1 and 2, and then we have to figure out, where do we shade. So negative 1 is less than x, which is less than or equal to 2. So x is literally in between negative 1 and 2. So that area would be right here in the middle. And now I need to think about the symbols, parentheses or brackets. So if you look at the inequality symbol here for negative 1, it's just x is greater than negative 1. So it's not going to be a bracket, it's going to be a parentheses. But if you look at the symbol on 2, it has the or equal to bar, which indicates a bracket. So my interval notation would be negative 1 to 2, close bracket.